After 30 years, Argentina has a new comprehensive HIV law. In Peru, a parliamentary commission approved a recommendation to charge President Pedro Castillo for alleged participation in a criminal organization. The death toll after security forces' repression against protests in Sudan rose to 9. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Argentina, the Senate passed a new comprehensive HIV law after 30 years of waiting. The national bill not only refers to HIV, but also includes viral hepatitis, other sexually transmitted infections, and tuberculosis. The bill, which proposes a comprehensive collective health approach and also seeks to provide containment and information to eliminate discrimination and prejudice, finally became a law. The initiative, originally presented by Representative Carolina Gairar of the Frente de Todos, also establishes the creation of a national observatory on stigma and discrimination and has the support of more than 200 institutions. After 10 p.m. local time on Thursday, and with only one vote against, the conversion of the bill into law was announced. During the discussion of the bill, Senator Maria Eugenia Duré summarized the importance of the bill's approval for people's lives.
With this law, we are still in the process of approving it, but also of being able to save lives on a daily basis, because it will be from the national state where we will be able to establish public health, but also together with different actors of the civil society. We will leave behind years and years of discrimination, of stigmatization, of keeping them under the carpet, of not being able to embrace them.
In Venezuela, the National Assembly has sanctioned the law of special economic zones, which guarantees the independence of the country while promoting investments for economic reactivation. This legal instrument aims to regulate the creation, organization, operation, and administration of areas for the development of economic projects and productive chaining. The draft of this law was approved in first discussion in April 2021 and guarantees the independence of the economic activity while promoting a new economic model that will contribute to increase the economic benefits of the Venezuelan people. The Deputy Jorge Rodriguez, President of the Bolivarian Parliament, when declaring the approval, explained the route to be followed once the legislative stage is completed.
Please signify it with the customary signal. It is hereby approved by an evident qualified majority. Consequently, the organic law of special economic zones is declared approved and is immediately sent to the Constitutional Chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice in accordance with the provisions of Article 203 of the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela for the purpose of its constitutional analysis, to be sent to the Executive and to be issued by the National Executive. Thank you very much to all of you, and sooner rather than later we will begin to see what the establishment of special economic zone means in a process of Bolivarian socialism such as the one we are all building.
This Thursday, the government of the plurinational state of Bolivia recorded another historic event by enacting the law of creation of the Yatun Ayllu Yura Indigenous Territory. In a ceremony held at the Casa Grande del Pueblo in La Paz, President Luis Arce promulgated the law that converts his territory into the 6th Farmers' Autonomy. On June 2nd, the Chamber of Deputies sanctioned the bill to create the native indigenous farming zone of the province of Antonio Quijarro in the department of Potosí. During his speech, in which he invited those present to study the laws so that no one would ever deceive them with what historically belongs to them, President Arce predicted that his country would become a reference for other nations with these initiatives, reiterating the historic nature of the moment.
Without a doubt, sisters and brothers, today is a historic day. How long have you been fighting for having the indigenous autonomy that today you can show with this law that we have promoted. Congratulations, sisters. You have fulfilled all the requirements as mentioned by the Ministry of the Presidency. All the steps have been fulfilled, and today we're completing the last step of promulgating a law that accredits our Yaitun Ayuyura as a territorial unit and indigenous territory of the native farming origin.
In Chile, the fourth regional conference on population and development of the Montevideo Consensus ended in Santiago with progress towards an agenda that guarantees the full enjoyment of the population's rights. During what it is the most important intergovernmental agreement in the region, the representatives of Latin America and the Caribbean committed themselves to 8 priority issues in response to repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic. The economic, the social, and the environmental dimensions follow up the 120 measures contemplated in the UN International Conference on Population and Development's Action Program. A commitment was made to strengthen multilateralism, solidarity, and international cooperation. Raúl García Buchaca, Assistant Secretary of ECLAC, emphasized as main objective the participation of citizens in the conference.
So, friends, this conference is about people. It is people-centered, and it is for the people. To have reached this point is the fruit of the joint work between governments, civil society, and the academy. And it gives us great satisfaction to know that the high level of participation continues to be one of the hallmarks of this conference.
The regional director of the United Nations Population Program, Harold Robinson, stated that the plan reached by the Montevideo Consensus is the key to a historic change in the region.
We are very proud of the Montevideo Consensus. We have taken it as the concept that changes the historical path of this region. But in reality, the Council will only be useful when it becomes our collective destiny. Thank you very much.
We are taking a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back from the South. This Thursday in Peru, the Congressional Oversight Commission approved a recommendation to initiate a constitutional accusation against President Pedro Castillo. The Commission approved the final report of the investigation into alleged irregularities where the President is accused of heading a criminal organization. The approval was decided in the Commission presided by Hector Ventura from the Fuerza Popular Party. The report occupied 24 sessions of the legislative body and had the presence of 41 officials as witnesses. In addition to the head of state, several of his ministers and other officials are implicated in the investigation. The cases with alleged irregularities, according to the report, are those known as Casa Zagratea and SBN, Puente Tarata 3, and interferences in promotions in the armed forces, among others. The Peruvian Congress approved the dismissal of the Minister of Interior, Dimitri Senmache, for his presumed link with the escape of people involved in acts of corruption in which the President, Pedro Castillo, is related. The Parliament reported that the dismissal had 78 votes in favor, 29 against, and 8 abstentions. According to the current law, Senmache has 72 hours to present his resignation letter. The dismissal is completed after a group of opposition congressmen presented a motion of censure where they accuse him of allowing the escape of the former Minister of Transport and Communications, Juan Silva, and former Presidential Secretary Bruno Pacheco, both included in an investigation for the presumed creation of a mafia that operated inside the Ministry of Transport and Communications.
Nine congressmen voted in favor, 3 against, no abstentions, and the decision was approved by a majority. Thanking the congressmen for their participation, the meeting was adjourned at 6:05.
Cuba's Prime Minister Manuel Marrero has led a governmental visit in the eastern region of Las Tunas aimed at addressing the problems of the people. This is the third visit to this province. During the visit, he was accompanied by members of the Council of Ministers and other high-ranking officials. They were able to observe the local development and the food production plans, as well as the transformation of communities considered vulnerable. The Cuban premier reiterated that these activities are a priority in the government's agenda and stressed the importance of continuing to seek solutions to support the entire population.
The objective is to touch problems with our hands, to listen to people and to see how the government can help the province move forward and look for solutions to the problems, even though we are aware that we have many accumulated issues and we're not going to solve everything from one day to the next, but we can always do a little more.
In Colombia, authorities remain alert for the arrival of the tropical wave that meteorologists indicate could turn into a storm. The Institute of Hydrology, Meteorology and Environmental Studies, IDEM, reported gusts of winds and high waves caused by the arrival of the climatic phenomenon to the archipelago of San Andres, Providencia and Santa Catalina. Thunderstorms, winds of 23.4 km per hour and gusts of approximately 39 km per hour have also been registered in these sectors. Analysis carried out by IDEM indicate that the wave is located in the western part of the Colombian Caribbean Sea, a condition that will be maintained during the next hours, sparking affectations over sectors of the continental and coastal zone. More news coming up after a final show break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Spain, numerous protests of different nature take place in rejection of the death of migrants, a defense that divides this nation from the Kingdom of Morocco. In Melilla city that hosts the violent dividing fence, the church has taken the streets in the company of hundreds of people under the slogan Black Lives Matter. In Zamora, rallies have been called where the participants demand the government of Pedro Sanchez a rigorous investigation for the events that took place last June 22nd. In other cities such as Murcia, Jerez and Madrid, the rallies led by migrants who recount the suffering to which they are subjected have expressed their energetic rejection of the events in which 37 people of African origin were murdered. In the United States, after the tragedy in which at least 53 migrants lost their lives, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of President Joe Biden. The president will now be able to eliminate in the short term and definitely the policy implemented by his predecessor known as the Migrant Protection Protocol. Donald Trump's imposition forced migrants to remain in Mexico while their applications were processed in the U.S. Biden's administration suspended the program in January 2021, arguing that it was an inhumane process, but the states of Missouri and Texas filed a lawsuit to stop the elimination of the program, popularly called Remain in Mexico. However, with 5 votes in favor and 1 against, the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of President Biden and established that the memorandum does not violate federal immigration law. Police repression during the last 5 days of protests in Sudan has so far left 9 people dead. The country is experiencing a wave of protests against the coup d'etat of General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan on October 25, 2021. According to national and international human rights organizations, all the victims were executed by the police with gunshots. Security forces have tried to contain the thousands of demonstrators who have taken to the streets of the main cities, and especially Khartoum, the capital, with tear gas and stun grenades. But the repression hardened and they opened fire on numerous unarmed civilians. The United Nations has made an appeal to the military forces because the protests continue. On June 30, the Democratic Republic of the Congo commemorated the 62nd anniversary of its independence by paying tribute to former Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba, assassinated by the colonialist government of Belgium in January 1961, and whose remains were recently repatriated to be buried with honors. The event was attended by hundreds of thousands of Congolese, many of them young people who vindicate the struggle of Lumumba, a national hero of that country. Our correspondent Oscar de Pelte has the details.
He received the homage he never had as a national hero. Just as Lumumba himself prophesied, it would be done in June the 30th, the day of the independence of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. All these institutions of the state, the army, the government, political parties, religious confessions, traditional institutions have participated in this small but grandiose ceremony, headed by the President of the Republic and his special guests. Different speeches have highlighted the value of Lumumba's ideas, sovereignty, solidarity, Pan-Africanism, as well as the value of his new historical moment in which, having recovered his body and the truth, will celebrate the symbolic beginning of a new era in which it is the Congolese who write history. The new generation, the Lumumba generation, as they now call it, face the great challenge of safeguarding national unity and integrity and rebuilding sovereignty and solidarity, so that the country's immense resources can be harvested for the good of the entire population. The Prime Minister's grandchildren praised the young Africa that is emerging, that no longer has any complexes in the face of the West, and that is fighting through entrepreneurship and social reconstruction for the same ideals as Lumumba. The President also advocated reconciliation with all the actors involved in the tragedy that the Congo experienced in the colonial past.
It is only after having told the truth, after having established the responsibilities of all parties, that we can get together, Congolese and Belgians, approach the decisive moments of forgiveness, justice, and true and definite reconciliation.
The President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo has highlighted Lumumba as a humanist and an inspirational figure on an international scale, calling on the Congolese people to keep Lumumba's memory as a place to revalue nationalist and republican ideals.
Desde Kinshasa, Oscar Repelde y Godé Calongi para TeleSUR.
The Federal Service for Supervision of Consumer Protection and Welfare has canceled all restrictions implemented to counteract the COVID-19 pandemic due to infected reduction. Through a statement, the health regulator explained that the mandatory use of masks, along with the closure of cafes and restaurants in the evening hours, were revoked because for several months the presence of the pathogen has decreased significantly, reducing the spread of the disease. To the measure is added the lifting of most of the health restrictions for the entry of foreigners to the country, although as a precaution, a negative PCR test will continue to be required. The President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, signed a decree authorizing the transfer of the assets of the Sakhalin Energy Investment Company. The decree published by the Presidential Press Office justifies this response by the risk of a series of violations of obligations undertaken by foreign legal and natural persons. It was signed in the face of threats of an emergency situation for the life and safety of people, for national interest, and for the security of the country. The presidential order states that shareholders of the Sakhalin 2 must give 1 month notice of their interest in owning shares in the new operator. Sakhalin 2 is an oil and gas project located on the Russian islands of the same name, whose majority shareholder is the Gazprom company, which owns 50% plus 1 share, while the rest are held by British and Japanese companies. TeleSUR continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on screen are in place since July 1st. Quite soon, further changes will be implemented for signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other faraway nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and unfaithfulness to our audience. We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.